welcome to Globecast, the official YouTube channel for Globe. My name is Moonlight, and I'll be hosting a series of interviews with some of the crypto industry pioneers, thought leaders, and traders. Please like this video, follow us, and leave your comment down below for who you'd like to hear us talk to next time. We are absolutely delighted to have Bobby Lee with us for the first episode of the series. Bobby founded BTCC, the first ever Bitcoin exchange company in China, and has recently founded Ballet Wallet. We will learn his personal journey in the industry as well as his thoughts on the current market. Let's move on to the interview now. All right, so I'm aware that you sort of started your technology career in Silicon Valley as a software engineer, and then you founded BTC China. Before that, you were also the vice president of Walmart in China. So it was kind of a change of, different career paths and trying new stuff. So I'm really interested in, was it like a coincidence? Or was it like a moment you decided to step into the industry?
So my career, as you mentioned, I started, I have a tech background. So I, went to Stanford University, studied computer science. So all my life I've been very much into science and technology engineering. So for me, I've been a big fan of computers since a very young age. Started programming very young age.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, to study computer science at Stanford was a very natural outcome. And then, of course, being at Stanford, being in Silicon Valley during the late 1990s, of course, that's when we saw the rise of the internet. So for me then to go into the internet industry was also a very natural outcome. So I started my career at Yahoo in 98, and I spent quite a few years there. I spent a total of 8 years there before moving to China and extending my tech career in China. So of course, back then, this is again 2006, 2007. This is before Bitcoin. I worked at EMC. I also worked at a local, what they call a state-owned enterprise called Best TV. I was CTO for the IP television company. And then I went to Walmart as VP of technology for the e-commerce business. So that was right when I discovered Bitcoin myself, which was in early 2011. As many people know, I heard about Bitcoin through my brother, Charlie. At the time, I was just a hobbyist for Bitcoin. So today already, we're already 10 years of me getting involved in Bitcoin. But as a hobbyist 10 years ago, 2011, it was mining. It was computer mining, GPU mining of Bitcoin. So I remember the summer of 2011, I had set up my own computer, with 4 graphics cards in it, running in my room in Shanghai and mining Bitcoin. Yeah, that was a hobbyist thing. But anyway, that's how I got involved.
Wow, so this year should be your 10th anniversary for the Bitcoin
we just
industry.
Passed it this year.
Wow.
So 10 years, feels like a long time, but it happens all in a blink.
Yeah.
So to speak.
It went as a click, and I really do reckon that I don't think anyone would have thought until this day that Bitcoin would be so big now and is so trendy, and also internet would be just dominating people's life in general. So I'm really sure that for many of the startups, for amateur traders, they're all really interested in questions like if there is a floor for Bitcoin, or how does the price vary, and how when does the price actually rebound, and how when do you start to buying it? Do you have any insight on that, to maybe some advice or any thoughts to give to the amateurs?
Yeah, well, I don't want to give trading advice to amateurs, but let me say it this way. So over the last 10 years, I've started as a hobbyist. I've also started, run my own company, became co-founder, CEO of BTC China, global sort of exchange, started in China, the very first one. So my 10 years of experience is probably richer than other people's 10 years of Bitcoin experience. In the sense that I've run a major exchange. I know, I've run a major wallet service, a major mining pool service, and now I'm starting my second startup called Ballet, also a maker of cold storage wallets. So the point is that what I've observed over the last 10 years tells me that has shown me that Bitcoin prices are very volatile, number one. And by the way, I talk about this in my book as well. I'm author of a new book called The Promise of Bitcoin. Where is it? Here's a copy. Promise of Bitcoin, The Future of Money and How It Can Work for You. So it's published by McGraw-Hill in the US. I think you can get it in England as well on Amazon. So about Bitcoin prices, it's very volatile. And the pattern that I see is that every 4 years or so, we see a huge bull market run in Bitcoin that crosses the all-time high. And why 4 years? Because I think it sort of reflects that Bitcoin itself, every 4 years, the new supply of Bitcoin gets cut down in half. So as people know, Bitcoin has 21 million units. Well, how does it come out to the world? Well, it turns out it comes out in a dribble, right? Every block that's mined every 10 minutes issues some new Bitcoins. It started with 50 Bitcoins in 2009. It got reduced to 25 Bitcoins in the first, what they call the block halving in November of 2012. That went down to 25. And the second halving happened, I believe it was July of 2016. It went down to 12 and a half. And then the third block halving happened last year. I think it was May, if I recall correctly, May or in of 2020, it went down to 6.25. So by going down this, by reducing the new supply of Bitcoin into the market, we're approaching that limit of 21 million. And right now, there are already over 18.5 million Bitcoins in circulation. And then again, in 3 more years rather, the block reward will go down to 3.25 or 3.125 rather, and so on and so forth. So I think that's how we see the big bull market runs. We saw a bull market run in 2013, which is roughly a year after the first block halving. We saw another bull market run in 2017, roughly a year after the second block halving. And then now we're seeing, I think we're in the midst of a third huge bull market rally, which is a year after the third block halving. So in terms of price, I think we can go really, really high just because Bitcoin is a truly scarce, limited digital currency, right? Cryptocurrency. You're asking about the low price. I think the low price keeps getting higher and higher over the years. I remember in 2013, the low would be like $100, right? I think we'll never get past below $100. Maybe we touched it briefly, $150 in 2015, but after 2017, I think the low is like $2,000, something like that. Never get below that, or briefly, if ever. And then today, we're 2021. I think a low price. I don't think we'll see below $10,000 anymore. We'll see. I mean, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But always, as I tell people, if you're interested in investing in Bitcoin, the best time to buy is always right now. And the reason is because the best time to buy Bitcoin is actually not about the price, but rather when you have the conviction, when you have the interest. Because normally when you want to buy things when prices are low, but the problem with Bitcoin as an investment is that when prices are low, it turns off a lot of people. People get, they get scared, they get bored, they don't feel like Bitcoin's going to go anywhere, they get disinterested. So a low price in Bitcoin actually does not encourage buying, unlike other goods and services or other investments. So it's kind of weird like that.
I agree. I think it's not really fair to say Bitcoin should be stable, because I think it's meant to be kind of unpredictable, and it's really like intriguing, quite thrilling almost. People want to challenge the market, want to challenge themselves, and want to have, a few insights or something they can share with other people. Be like, I've gained a thing or two from trading, from, buying Bitcoins. So what do you think, is there any differences between the Chinese market and the US market? I mean, certainly there is. And also, do you reckon COVID has caused any impact on the market as a whole? And
that's a great question. I don't think, at least I haven't seen an impact of COVID on Bitcoin trading or Bitcoin prices. But I do see that there's a difference in the market in China versus in the U.S. As people know, I travel back and forth between the United States. My home base there is in Las Vegas, and my home base in China is in Shanghai. And what I've observed over the last 15 years that I've been living here in China is that the Chinese people, the people here in Asia, China, are much more fascinated by the price movements, by the trading, by the trading of Bitcoin, by the way people can make money trading Bitcoin. So in China, it's been very popular, these leverage trading products, these futures, options, the rolling expiration futures and all that stuff that's been offered by all the various exchanges. I think that's a much more popular way for people to participate in Bitcoin. There's also a lot of mining activity. And by the way, both of these activities I'm describing have now been formally shut down and discouraged by the regulators.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
China. So for good or bad, mining in China has stopped. For good or bad, the trading and the leverage trading has stopped in China. But back to my comparison, in the U.S., I think people look at Bitcoin, and there are always exceptions, right? Even though I described this, there's exceptions to what I'm saying. But generally speaking, in the U.S., it's more of an investment. It's more of people talk about Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency, as a form of payment. So I think I just think it's kind of interesting that there's a different angle to it, and partly why is because in China payment is not allowed. The government explicitly forbid Bitcoin as a form of payment because it's not recognized as a currency, and this has been the case since 2013. Whereas in the U.S., it's more liberal, more free. Companies are allowed to accept payment in Bitcoin as they choose. And the second thing is, the U.S. has a underground economy for drugs and other
Yes.
illicit services and goods, and sometimes those are paid in Bitcoin. Whereas in China, that activity is clearly not prevalent. So there's no need for Bitcoin as a payment in China for goods and services. So that explains a little bit. And also, I think the people in the U.S. generally are of a different personality. They don't bother to trade extreme, what I call extreme volatility, trade on extreme volatility, for profit and stuff like that, for leverage and stuff like that. And plus, the U.S. by the way, has a very strong framework on regulation. The SEC, the CFTC, governing commodities trading, governing stocks, equities trading, futures trading, and all that. So that's also why that the trading stuff in the U.S. is much more tamped down. There's a spot market, Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken, Circle, very well capitalized institutions offering exchange services, but they don't do any leverage stuff, at least not the way it's done in Asia.
And it's really interesting that you mentioned about Bitcoin as a payment, because remember the Tesla boss, Elon Musk, and he did mention that the electric car maker was likely to, start accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment again. And also, also in 2017, China has had the new regulation on cryptocurrency, I think, which was kind of, well, not exactly the same, but 99% same to the one that was announced last year. And it was kind of a huge change, I'd say. And we see in recent years that the government authorities are stepping into the crypto industry, like FCA, SCA, etc. So do you think the regulation is blocking the paths of blockchain and cryptocurrency?
Certainly, China, China's not going to be friendly with crypto. I think it's been very clear this year. I mean, the writing was on the wall sort of a few years ago, but now this year it's increasingly clear that the Chinese regulators will not tolerate cryptocurrency trading, cryptocurrency company offering trading services or mining services, or even large scale operations of Bitcoin mining. I think to them, it's to the regulators, it's too much of a risk to the financial system in terms of the volatile prices, people losing money, stuff like that. In the U.S., I think the regulators are still very open-minded. I think fundamentally it's a different lawmaking sort of it's a different lawmaking body, right? It's a different philosophy in terms of how laws are made, by elected legislators who are elected by the people. So in a country like the U.S., what I tell people is if people want it, it's going to be legal, and if people don't want it, then it's going to be made illegal, right? So that's why in the U.S., talk about, for example, policies like abortion, right? Pro-life versus pro-choice. I mean, that's been a constant debate over the last few decades, right? Even things like gun ownership, and then of course with Bitcoin, I mean, it's not in the center yet, like abortion, pro-life versus gun ownership in the U.S. But I think it will be. I think cryptocurrency ownership and trading, all that, will come to the legislators front and center within. I think in the next 2 decades, we'll see it become a larger part of the U.S. Regulators. But in the end, the way I see it is people want it. Like people like myself, and many crypto backers in the U.S. really want cryptocurrency. They appreciate the fact that it's decentralized, the fact that it's limited, the fact that it has certain privacy and anonymity features to it. So I think it'll be hard to make it illegal in the U.S. Even though many people will try. And then Bitcoin has a lot of enemies naturally in the banking sector, because if you think about Bitcoin, right, the reason Bitcoin exists is because it was invented to give people power over their own money, right?
Yes.
With Bitcoin, we as people have real ownership of our digital assets. We own it in the sense that we have the private keys. We could do whatever we want with it, right? Give it to whoever we want at whatever time we want, in whatever amount we want, without controls, without censorship, without people inspecting what we do with our money. That's what I love about Bitcoin. And I'm talking about it, for very legitimate law-abiding uses. I'm not even talking about it for shady, money laundering or illegal, illicit uses. I'm talking about for legitimate uses. I still want freedom to send however much I want to whoever I want at whatever time I want, without having to reveal my identity and so on and so forth, right? So that's a very hard thing for the existing banking system, the money people, to accept, because the whole financial system in the U.S. and in Europe, of the Western world, if you will, the whole financial system is built on control. It's built on banks and regulators controlling the funds, nosing around who has how much, who can send how much, by what means. They have fees and all that. One of the worst kind of fees is not just a bank transfer fee, but rather the hidden fee where they sit on your money without paying you the true interest rate as a rate of expansion, right? If they're expanding money at 10%, let's say, I'm exaggerating, okay? If they expand money at 10%, then in my opinion, you should be getting interest rate of 10% to cover your loss of purchasing power. But if they only give you interest at 2%, then the banks and the financial system is making the spread on the rest, right? So I think that's what's happening these days. Money is growing faster than people are getting paid for through interest, and that's a hidden taxation. And that's what I'm really out against. That's why I think Bitcoin is critical. Bitcoin doesn't do that, right? As Bitcoin increases in supply, we always have a fixed amount of the 21 million. So we'll never get a diminishing part like we do with fiat.
So I think, and obviously in China, it's kind of hard. It's just without the regulation, and also with people's nature of, fulfilling the duty and following the rules. So I'd say it's really different from what it's like maybe outside China. And you did mention about the Ballet wallet. And, there are many different sort of cryptocurrency miners now are starting to look for alternative trades professions. And many leading crypto companies have, now reduced their work operations in the region by substantial, I'd say 70%, since China has set strict regulation and ban on the use of Bitcoin. So how has Ballet Wallet managed to survive through such challenging situation?
Well, so Ballet, we make a cold storage wallet. Here's a card. So it's actually so one thing is this is a very safe version of a wallet. So let me explain the background, okay?
Mhm.
So most of the world still store their cryptocurrency when they buy Bitcoin. They store it on what we call custodial exchanges. They leave it on an exchange, whether it's FTX, whether it's Binance, Coinbase, or Huobi, or whatever exchange they use all around the world. They leave their coins on the exchange. So that's the what I call the base layer. The vast majority of people use custodial storage platforms, exchanges, and this is dangerous for two reasons. Number one is that, like you have pointed out, governments may regulate these companies, ban them or close them, shut them down. Hackers may hack into them. So people can lose money because of the stability of the company. We've seen Mt. Gox was a very well known exchange in the early days, about 8-9 years ago, and then they went bankrupt in 2014 due to a large hack, which they try to cover up, and so on and so forth. So leaving your money on exchange is dangerous for that reason. It's also dangerous because you really have a banking relationship with the exchange. You have an account basis. Uh, so your account can actually get hacked, right? Unlike so just like regular banks, there could be identity theft. They can steal your phone number through a SIM card hijacking. They can steal your password, email account, and all that, and they can hack into your account and steal your bitcoins that way. So that's why custodial storage is the worst option. And then what people do these modern days is people take their bitcoins out, they put it in their software wallets on mobile phones or desktop computers. And there are many examples of them, where there's M token, there's my Ether wallet, all these software wallets, even Bitcoin Core, Electrum, all these software wallets are hot wallets because they're always connected to the internet, right? So whether it's a computer, mobile phone, and even though you have a backup seed recovery phrase for these wallets, the downside is that because they're always connected, you can get a hijacking of the software. You could get what I call malware, phishing, and all that stuff, so that people can lose money that way. So that's why the gold standard in a wallet is actually the cold wallet. So even my last company, I offered a BTC. We launched two different wallets, custodial wallets. One was called Picasso. The second one was called Mobi. These were all software wallets, custodial. And looking back in hindsight, that was the wrong thing to do, right? That was, given what I know today, it was, in some ways irresponsible, right? Because in the end, we didn't give our customers the true ownership and the true control of their cryptocurrency the way the ethos was supposed to be about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, right? So that's why 2 years ago I launched a new company called Ballet, and what we make is the ultimate form of cold storage. So you put cryptocurrency on this wallet card. In this case, it's a non-electronic cold wallet, cold storage, and there's no hacking. There's no ways for someone to connect this online. There's no computer chips, no Wi-Fi signals. There's no Bluetooth, no NFC signals, radio waves. You cannot get anything off of this except by looking at the private key components and so on. So in that sense, all we're selling is a stainless steel card, right? It's very durable. It's very designed for longevity. We are the only wallet that's probably in the market that's designed for a 20-year lifespan. I'm very eager to find out, in 20 years how this holds up. But I can assure you, many of our cold storage competitors, their solutions probably won't last 5-10 years. And you asked about the regulation. Well, we're just selling this. There's no custody. We don't touch the user's funds. We can't control the user's funds. The users will always have full exclusive control over their cryptocurrency. All the kinds of currencies they store: Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, Zcash, anything they want, right? All the Ethereum ERC20 tokens and so on. So in that sense, I'm happy. I'm in a comfortable place, right? So as of yet, the regulators don't regulate this because it's just a device. It's just a user creating their own private keys. They can store their cryptocurrency however they want. We're just providing the physical unit, right? They still manage their cryptocurrency. So unlike a custodial wallet, where you have to get licensed, right? That's what I'm talking about. Like at BTCC, if I were to launch a custodial service and serve the U.S. market, I have to get a license by the U.S. regulators. Where there's New York, the BIT license by the New York DFS, or in Europe, I have to get corresponding licenses, e-money licenses by the European countries. But with something like this, so far I think we're in the clear. So in that sense, we have not been affected by the regulatory clampdown in China. So knock on wood, very fortunate to be in this position.
That's really good. I think having a physical card means like you're making something that's intangible, and you're not making it really tangible. And people would, maybe build more trust.
I think you got it wrong. A physical card is tangible. I think you got the terms mixed up. A physical card is tangible versus a virtual thing is intangible. This is tangible, right? You could see it, you could hear it. We even have a scent on here. You can smell it. So this is tangible. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you're making something tangible rather than intangible. Yes, that's right. Yeah, and also I'm aware that you mentioned about 50 years, long time, and also I'm also really intrigued to see how the world would be like in 50 years time, and any of the trading, or maybe will we still be on planet Earth? Hopefully, I don't know. But yeah, so do you reckon that Bitcoin is now affecting future development of many different industries, different disciplines, like how people would live in the future, how people would, different lifestyle or trading, traffic, payment, anything, business? Do you have any, insights, or any, do you reckon Bitcoin is now affecting the way people are living, and potentially in the future as well?
I think so. I think we are. I think Bitcoin is now 12 years old. It's still very young, right? In measure, as measured by in human years, a 12-year-old child is still a child and not even a teenager yet, right? So you have some very young technology. Very young. On one hand, it's very mature. It's very stable. Bitcoin hasn't crashed, hasn't stopped working in any of its last 12 and a half years. But at the same time, if you're learning about Bitcoin for the very first time today, you're reading my book, The Promise of Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is very, very early today, cryptocurrency. Imagine where the internet was when it was 12 years old. The internet, the early technologies were invented in the 60s and 70s, right? The first network, I think, got connected in 1969, if I recall correctly. Stanford, MIT, UCLA, I think it was back then, right? So 12 years after that is like 1981, right? This is way before the consumer internet that you and I know, right? I connected online to the internet in 1993, 92, I think, using CompuServe dial-up modem in the United States. That's like 2400 baud modem. Very, today is like sounds crazy technology. But the point is, by then, the internet was already 20, 30 years old. Not the consumer internet, but the real internet infrastructure, right? So today, Bitcoin is so early. We're not even talking about consumer cryptocurrency yet. Right now, it's all the geeks, all the nerds, all the early adopters, trading and buying crypto. There's all the mania with mining and stuff like that. And the regulators starting to come in and talking about it, just like the internet regulators were coming in talking about how to make it a global communication standard back in the early 90s and so on. But the big explosion happened with the internet in the late 90s and in 2000. I would say the big explosion happened in the last 20 years with all the apps running on it. So for cryptocurrency, we are still so early. I think it's going to hugely affect human life and society. Whether we go to Mars, whether we stay on planet, whether there will be, true global market, one global market for all goods and services, free trade and stuff like that, payments. It's going to append. I think Bitcoin will append the monetary system, and that's a huge statement. People don't understand. People can't even grasp what I'm trying to say is that we were all born, like you and I, and all our parents and grandparents were born on this planet in a system of money where there's a central authority, whether it's a Bank of England, whether it's a Federal Reserve, whether it's a central bank of Europe or whatever country, right? Even in Africa, where I was born, there's this entity that issued money, and what they say is final. Whereas today, with Bitcoin, it's not the case, right? With Bitcoin, no one's in control of it. And to some naysayers, they say, oh, that's terrible. No one's in control. Everything's going to go wrong. But to the true believers, the hardcore people, that's great because no one can abuse it, right? With Bitcoin,
Yes.
the amount of Bitcoins I have, the amount of Bitcoins you have, it's between you and me. We'll never have to cater to the whims of some central banker telling us what we can and cannot do with our Bitcoin, the value of our Bitcoin, and so on and so forth. I think in our lifetime, we'll see the money system, the monetary system get appended and get replaced by a system that's either going to be directly based on Bitcoin or at least maybe partially backed by Bitcoin. So I'm very convinced of that. And that's a big, big change.
Yeah, I'm really convinced as well after just hearing all of this. I think it's more like a rising star. It's really fresh. It's like a newborn kid, and no one can really, depict the future for it. And it's also like a double-sided sword. Yeah, like you said, like no one's in control of it, but also everyone could be in control of it, which is also a
Yeah.
huge thing. It's more like your intimate friend that you always have it with you, and you can always choose whether you want it or not. I mean, that sounds a bit harsh. That sounds really harsh. But yeah, you get what I mean. Would you reckon we'd see a sort of more, what sort of phenomenon do you reckon we might be seeing at the end of this year? Is it going to go
Yeah.
a bit lower or a bit higher?
I think it's going to go much higher. I think, I say this based on my gut feel. So I don't have any proof. I don't have any evidence. People ask me, how do you predict this? I just predict it. And my prediction is that we're in the middle of the bull market year. Right now, we're taking a breather in the summer of 2021. I think by the late summer, by fall, in the winter, we'll see Bitcoin go up to maybe 150,000, 200, $250,000. So it's going to be at least 5 times today's price, maybe 4 or 5, 3, yeah, 5 times today's price. Maybe even up to 8 or 10 times today's price. And that's a lot. That's a huge run up, right? So go
That's
to
a
a quarter
lot,
million
yeah.
dollars. And I won't be surprised if it does. I will be surprised if it does not cross $150,000. I will be very surprised if it doesn't cross $150,000. But I always reserve the right to be wrong. But I do firmly believe that the bull market, this is a bull market year. We're going to see a huge rally. And yeah, that's gonna be very exciting. But at the same time, what happens after bull market is a very prolonged, extended, very nasty bear market. So I tell people you got to be prepared, right? If it comes, it's two sides of the same coin, right? You want the bull market, well, after that's gonna be the bear market. So you got to be prepared to ride it out, and that's gonna come next year, and it's gonna be very devastating. A lot of people will lose faith. A lot of investors will lose money. But you got to sit tight. The way I see it is, if you're investing in Bitcoin, don't expect to sell at the end of this year at the peak, because no one gets to sell at the peak. Rather, you should plan to invest for 8 to 10 years, for at least 2 more cycles, right, after this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I do reckon it's about consistency when it comes to investing. And yeah, when you hit the highest, it could also be your lowest, or you could, always fall to the lowest. But I think it's kind of, I feel like investing Bitcoin, well, personally for me, is just like living life. I mean, it's kind of unpredictable. You never know what's around the corner. You never know. You can never predict anything.
That's
So
right.
it's really interesting. So if you think about it that way, managing life is like managing Bitcoin. Well, it's like kind of elaborating it to another level. But yeah, I do reckon it kind of works the same way. And the equation only works when both parties contribute. I'm aware that your brother Charlie is also sort of in the industry. So do you normally share, thoughts or two in between, or?
Now he's of course people know him. He's a creator of Litecoin. He's actually a very big fan of Bitcoin. I think that's something that's misunderstood. People know him to be a big fan of Litecoin, but people don't realize that he's a fan of Litecoin because he's a fan of Bitcoin first. And all the stuff that he's doing with Litecoin Foundation is all for Bitcoin in the sense, right? I think financially he's more tied to Bitcoin than he is to Litecoin, if anything. He lives in the U.S. in California. I talk to him every once in a while, and I know we haven't lived in the same city in the last 10, 15, 20 years, but I guess 15 years, yeah. But he and I talk pretty frequently, and we're in the same industry. We go to conferences together every so often, so it's good. It's good. It's good to have a real sibling in this awesome industry.
Yeah, it's like family time, also business time.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you reckon you might be writing another book anytime soon?
Oh gosh, not anytime soon. So this book, The Promise of Bitcoin, um, I started. I've always wanted to write a book in my life, and I started this in 2000. I would say 18. Yeah, after I sold BTCC, I had some free time. That's when I started to put this project together to write a book. And then it just took longer than I expected. Had I really wanted, I didn't want to do just a simple self-published book. I really wanted to find a real publisher in the US, publishes in English. So it took some time. I had to find an agent, a book agent.
Mhm.
So I have a great agent in New York. And then we pitched it to all the publishers. We had to so I think, yeah, basically 2019, I'm trying to, all the dates are melding in my mind. Basically wrote introductory chapter, a sample chapter to publish, to show all the publishers, and then get a book contract, get a book advance. So overall it took like 2.5 years, 3 years. So I finally finished the manuscript in late 2020 during the COVID, how the COVID crisis and all that actually gave me a chance to really finish the manuscript, editing it, and then more edits this year. And finally, I finished my last touches in March of this year, and it came out in May. So another 2 months of printing and all that. So now it's on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon in the US, in the UK, in Europe. You can buy it on Kindle version as well for the ebook version. And the audiobook version is coming out, I think, later this summer. I don't have the exact date. The publishers are working on that. There's also going to be a translated version, I think, in Portuguese for Brazil and maybe Portugal market. And there's a Korean version, Korean language, and then there's going to be a Spanish version for Mexico and other Spanish-speaking countries. So those are the 3 translations so far. Yeah.
Can't wait for the audio version. Did you record it yourself? Yes. No, I'm joking.
I did not. I did not. I tried to submit my. I had to audition for it, but I don't think I'm a good enough of a speaker, like audiobook. Yeah, they have professional readers who read it. So at least at this point, I think it's in someone else's hands. The publishers have the rights to that, so they're gonna publish it. Yeah.
I mean, it would be really time consuming anyway to read all the passages out.
Yeah, it's about 280, 300 pages, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully by the next bull market year, we'd have your second book out.
Well, I don't have plans for a second book. I think this book is already took so much time. I'm right now I'm focused on my wallet company, Ballet. I'm really happy this already became a Wall Street Journal bestseller. So I think it's doing pretty well in the sales. And let me say this one more thing. So the reason I wrote this book is not to make money from this. I think for me, much more important is to teach everyday people about Bitcoin, right? So over the years, people come to me and say, hey, Bobby, I heard you speak about Bitcoin. I'd love to learn more. Can you show me some articles online? Where can I learn more about Bitcoin? And there was never a good go-to place for me to point them to. Go read about this, go read about that. Some of the good books on Bitcoin that come out have been about stories, about people and stuff like that. And some of the other books about the technology have been very, very detailed and and very nerdy sort of technology. So for me, it was important to write a book about Bitcoin that was for the everyday person. So these days, anyone new who comes to me and say, Bobby, thank you for giving a great speech about Bitcoin, about topic of cryptocurrency, blockchain, whatever, and they want to learn more, I say, go read this book. Go read this book, and then you'll learn more, and then you'll be more educated. So that's what this purpose is for.
I'm placing my order just in a minute because I am also, I do fall into the category of one of those people be like, yeah, Bobby, give me a few more insights about this because I'm also new to the industry and I do want to learn more from it. because I do see a future with it.
Yeah, so go buy it. It's called The Promise of Bitcoin on Amazon or other booksellers. I think it's all over the world in English-speaking countries.
Thanks so much for coming today, for joining us. Like I said, you are the first guest we have, and also I do hope that you had a great time. Thank you so much for sharing so many insights and, all your personal thoughts with us and with all the potential audiences. And I do hope that the bull market would hit the highest and then we would not fall to the lowest, hopefully, fingers crossed. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more professional interviews and personal experiences with more interviewees. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment down below for your feedback. Bye!